This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Alright, and welcome to the GSMC Sports Podcast. This episode is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and for today's show, it's going to be a football-heavy show, really. We're going to talk Week 13, recap the games from the Sunday. In the first segment after that, we'll break it up a little bit. We'll talk about college football, the rankings for there, and then later on, we'll talk about the Sunday night and Monday night football games. I feel like they should get their own segment, obviously, because it's primetime games. And then for that last segment, we'll talk some NBA games from last night, which was Monday, and we'll also talk about pretty much anything else going on in the world of sports. We'll talk about a little bit about Ben McAdoo getting fired too. Maybe we'll throw that into the third segment, so we'll see how much time we have for it all. But yeah, let's just get into it right now. All right. As for the first game up on Sunday, we had Minnesota heading into Atlanta. Minnesota won that one 14-9. Case Keenum through 30 passes, had 25 completions, 227 yards, 2 touchdowns. Latavius Murray ran the ball 16 times, had 76 yards. Jerick McKinnon 9 carries, 24 yards, 5 receptions, 28 yards, and a touchdown. Kyle Rudolph had 4 receptions for 36 yards and a touchdown. Matt Ryan didn't have all that good of a game, only 173 yards off, and he only completed 16 out of his 29 passes. Devontae Freeman had 12 carries for 74 yards, and then Tevin Coleman only had 8 carries for 22 yards. I really hope that now that Freeman's back, I really hope he's been back for 2 weeks, I believe now, but I really hope that Steve Sarkisian in that offense really just doesn't take away Coleman's touches, because it's looking like they're about to right now, and the guy was playing really well when Freeman was out, so I say just go with the hot hand instead of just trying to feed the starter, because you know it doesn't really. You're in a playoff hunt right now, okay? I think they're 7-5 now, 7-6, one of those, but either way, yeah, they're in the playoff hunt right now, so you got to go with the hot hand, you got to go with what works best. But other than that, Julio Jones had 2 catches for 24 yards. That guy is off and on. I know people like to talk about Julio being the best receiver in the NFL, but he's not consistent enough to be considered with Antonio Brown right now. Antonio Brown, without a doubt, is the best wide receiver in the NFL. The guy's consistent, constantly drops 100 yards a game with ease, usually around 5-6 catches a game, and usually drops a touchdown too. So when Julio Jones starts putting up, I understand Julio Jones had 253 yards a couple weeks ago or last week. Can't remember exactly. I think it was last week. But either way, yeah, it's cool if you do that maybe once a season, 2 times a season like how he does. But if you're not consistently dropping 100 yards a game, then you're not going to be considered the best receiver in the NFL. No matter what your talent level is, you got to be consistent in order to be the best. As for the next game, though, we had Denver going into Miami, and honestly, I thought this game was going to be a toss-up. I thought it would have went between either team could have won it at least before the game started, and yeah, I just felt like Miami's offense wasn't good enough in order to help them pull away, and Denver's offense is obviously the same thing with them. So I thought it was going to come down to the defense, who's going to hold them down to the lowest amount of points. And you know what? Miami blew out Denver 35-9. Trevor Siemian probably this is the first time I've gotten to watch a Denver game like the entire time. Pretty much gotten a solid look at their quarterbacks, and Trevor Siemian is brutal. Threw 41 passes, only completed 19 of them, had 200 yards and 3 interceptions. Those 3 interceptions were just terrible. Throwing into covered guys who were covered. Okay, and then he couldn't hit it. He couldn't make throws at all to save his life, and it's just. I don't know what Elway's going to do. I mean, we'd like to think that, Elway is a top 10 quarterback all time. At least that's what I believe. And I guess we tend to think that, you know what, since he was a great quarterback, maybe he's a good guy at judging talent at the quarterback position. But so far, I mean, other than Peyton Manning saving him for 5 years, you really haven't seen Elway really draft a quarterback or even bring in a quarterback who shows that he can maybe be the guy. Paxton Lynch drafted him in the first round, really hasn't showed anything. Trevor Siemian won the starting job last year. Played okay for a bit, but this season has been brutal. And then we all know how Brock Osweiler plays the quarterback position, so there's no reason to go in and talk about him. So John Elway was probably going to draft the guy out of Wyoming, Josh Allen, and I don't think he's going to be all that good of a quarterback either. I think he's more of a project, but guess we're going to have to see how it all plays out, but Elway really needs to figure it out because he's wasting a good, talented team right now because the quarterback position is terrible. But as for C.J. Anderson, he had 15 carries, 67 yards, 4 receptions, 43 yards. Demarius Thomas had a quiet game, only 2 receptions for 27 yards. Jay Cutler, 235 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Obviously, because it's Jay Cutler, he has to get those interceptions in there. He completed 18 out of his 31 passes, and probably a good feeling for him, even though he doesn't show too much emotion, really. I mean, it's always good to be your old team. As for Kenyon Drake, making that J.J. trade look not better, but not as bad as it looked when it first happened. He had 23 carries, 130 yards, and a touchdown. And I'm talking about the J.J. trade because on paper, yeah, a 4th rounder for J.J. just given his production and how well he played last year. Everyone probably likes to think that he's a top running back in the league, top 10 at least. And yeah, just a 4th rounder for the guy really just didn't look good at all. But I mean, so far since Jai's been gone, Miami's offense really hasn't gotten any worse. And I know that's hard to do because they already had a terrible offense, but I mean, Kenyon Drake's been playing well. Damian Williams was playing well before he injured his shoulder. So, you really haven't seen a difference with Ajayi not out there. Pretty much, if anything, they've gotten a little bit better over the last few weeks at the running back position. And as far as the entire offense goes, they've gotten better. But as for Kenny Stills, he had 5 receptions, 98 yards and a touchdown. And Jarvis Landry had 5 receptions for 62 yards. As for Detroit, they let me down. They went into Baltimore. Baltimore won that one 44-20. Honestly, did not see Baltimore dropping 44 points at all. Didn't think they were going to be able to. Didn't even think they were going to be able to drop more than 20. If they were going to drop more than 20, it'd be 21 because of that extra point after the 3rd touchdown, I believe. All right, that's what I thought at least. But no, they come out, drop 44. I thought Detroit was going to win this game, at least before the game started, because I felt that Baltimore's defense has been playing really good all year, but that offense has looked brutal, and I thought Detroit was going to be able to at least hold that offense and be able to score enough points in order to help them win. But simply, Detroit didn't win this game because the defense didn't show up, and you could see that in the score. Obviously, that's why Baltimore scored 44 points. But Matt Stafford, he had 24 completions out of 29 attempts, 292 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Did leave the game because of a hand injury. Can't remember exactly if it was his throwing hand or his non-throwing hand, but I'll have to find out about that. I had to search this guy out, Tion Green. He was the lead back for the Lions in this game. He had 11 carries, 61 yards, and a touchdown. Theo Riddick, 9 carries, 21 yards, and a touchdown. Marvin Jones Jr., 4 receptions, 90 yards, and no touchdowns. Golden Tate also had 8 receptions for 69 yards. Joe Flacco completed 23 out of his 36 passes, 269 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alex Collins had a good game on the ground, 15 carries, 75 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then Mike Wallace was their leading receiver of the game for the Ravens, 5 receptions, 116 yards. Next up, we had New England. They went into Buffalo and pretty much did what they always do. Buffalo at home against New England is pretty much like New England playing at home against Buffalo. New England's going to blow them out every time. New England won this one 23-3. Tom Brady completed 21 out of his 30 passes, had 258 yards, 1 interception. Dion Lewis had 15 carries, 92 yards. Rex Burkhead having a pretty solid season so far, at least in the last few weeks. He's been playing really good. 12 carries, 78 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Rob Gronkowski, 9 receptions, 147 yards. Tyrod Taylor went 9 of 18 throwing the ball, 65 yards, 1 interception before he left the game injured. Nathan Peterman comes in, 6 of 15, 50 yards, and that's a huge improvement from his last game because if you remember, he was the guy who threw 5 interceptions in his start. So yeah, he didn't throw any interceptions this one, so a really good game from him, at least for his standards as of right now. Sean McCoy, 15 carries, 93 yards, and Zay Jones was Buffalo's leading receiver with 2 receptions for 22 yards. San Francisco went into Chicago. This was Jimmy Garoppolo's first start. Didn't throw for any touchdowns. Threw for 293 yards and interception. I really didn't play all too bad. I mean, the stats really don't look good there because he didn't throw for any touchdowns, but he did lead him down the field in order to set up Robbie Gould in position to kick the game-winning field goal. And Robbie Gould had his revenge game against the Bears. He kicked 5 field goals, and that pretty much actually did total up all of San Francisco's points with 15, obviously. And he was able to help them get the win. But Carlos Hyde had 17 carries for 54 yards. Marquise Goodwin had 8 receptions for 99 yards. And Trent Taylor for San Francisco had 6 receptions for 92 yards. Mitch Trubisky for Chicago went 12 of 15, 102 yards and a touchdown. Man, his stats are just weird to me because I know he doesn't throw the ball enough, but I mean, he's going 12 of 15, 102 yards and a touchdown. It's like, I didn't get to watch this game, but it's like, man, did Chicago not have the ball for that much? Like, didn't have that much possession of time in this game? Because, I mean, either that or John Fox just trying his hardest to limit Trubisky right now to the throws that he's making and pretty much his attempts. But John Fox is probably going to be gone after the season. I don't know why they'd keep him after this year. They need to bring in a young coach who can help Trubisky pretty much develop. But Jordan Howard only had 13 carries for 38 yards. Another back-to-back bad games for Howard. Tariq Cohen was their leading receiver, and that's not too good considering he's a running back. He had 4 receptions for 39 yards. As for Tampa Bay, this game was actually kind of weird because this is one of those overtime games. Yeah, it goes to overtime, but no one really cares about it or seems to talk about it because it's between two bad teams. Tampa Bay went up against Green Bay. Green Bay won this one in overtime. They won 26-20. Jameis Winston went 21-32 and throwing the ball, 270 yards, 2 touchdowns. Did have a fumble that led to the game-winning touchdown from Green Bay in overtime. Jameis Winston really, what's keeping him from being a great quarterback is he gets in his own way. He needs to pick and choose his own battles, okay? Because on that last play where Green Bay scored and won the game, Jameis is already going down for the sack, and he's basically like his back's barely about to hit the ground. He's still trying to get the ball out and pretty much not taking the sack. So when he tries to throw the ball, he fumbles it, and then the Packers defensive lineman picks it up, takes it all the way to the house for a touchdown. That's what ends the game. And Jameis Winston really just needs to get out of his own way and be a whole lot smarter than he actually is right now, because you know what? That's exactly what's hurting him. That's what's hurting the team. And that's what's hurting the coach right now. This team was supposed to be a playoff team, but right now they're 4-8. So you know what? You might see Dirk Cutter. I got to figure out what that guy's last name is or how to pronounce it. But you might see him gone after this season just because of how underwhelming they've been the entire season. But you know, it's not entirely his fault. Jameis Winston needs to play better. But other than him, Peyton Barber had a decent game. 23 carries, 102 yards, 4 receptions, 41 yards. Actually a good game from him. Cameron Brate had 2 receptions for 39 yards and 2 touchdowns. Brett Hundley, 13 of 22, 84 yards, and 1 interception. Those stats are extremely brutal right there, man. Aaron Rodgers needs to hurry up and come back. But Jamal Williams, 21 carries, 113 yards, 1 touchdown. Aaron Jones, 1 carry for 20 yards, 1 touchdown. That's efficiency at its finest right there. And Devontae Adams, 4 receptions for 42 yards. As for Indianapolis, they went into Jacksonville. Jacksonville obviously blew them out 30-10. Jacoby Brissett, only 174 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Frank Gore, 13 carries, 61 yards. T.Y. Hilton, 3 receptions, 51 yards, and a touchdown. Blake Bortles actually had a good game, boys and girls. 26-35, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns. Leonard Fournette had 20 carries for 57 yards and a touchdown. And then Marquise Lee had 7 receptions for 86 yards and a touchdown. As for this next game, man, I was right. Gave up on Kansas City at the right time. Gave up on them last week. What did they do this week? They lose again. They lost to the Jets 38-31 in New York. Alex Smith actually had a pretty good game. 366 yards passing, 4 touchdowns. Even had a 1 carry for 70 yards. What I want to know about this 1 carry for 77 yards, how do you first off, how do you let Alex Smith break off for 70 yards, okay? And then second of all, if you're Alex Smith, how do you break off for 70 yards and not get a touchdown out of it? But I don't know. But either way, Kareem Hunt had 9 carries for 40 yards. Man, that guy just hit a complete downfall. Tyreek Hill had 6 receptions for 185 yards, 2 touchdowns. Travis Kelce, 4 receptions, 94 yards, 2 touchdowns. Josh McCown, he's going to get one of those big money backup quarterback contracts at the end of the year, I feel. You know, he had 331 yards, 1 touchdown, 7 carries, 19 yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. Bilal Powell was their leading rusher, actually. 18 carries for 48 yards and a touchdown. And Robbie Anderson had 8 receptions for 107 yards. Javon Curse had 9 receptions for 157 yards. So pretty big games from their receiving corps. Houston went into Tennessee. Tennessee won that one 24-13. Tom Savage, 365 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Lamar Miller, 15 carries, 56 yards, 4 receptions, 38 yards. Let's see, DeAndre Hopkins, another big game from him, 8 receptions, 80 yards. And not a big game, but I mean, Tom Savage is your quarterback. This guy's been putting up consistent numbers, so I mean, it's pretty good from him. Let's see, Marcus Mariota, 150 yards, 1 touchdown. Derrick Henry, 11 carries for 109 yards and 1 touchdown. And Delaney Walker had 5 receptions for 63 yards and a touchdown. Cleveland went into LA, faced off with the Chargers. The Chargers won that one 19-10. Deshaun Kaiser had 215 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception, 5 carries for 46 yards. Josh Gordon had 4 receptions for 85 yards. Really big game out of him in his first game in 3 years, I think it was. Yeah, so a really big game from him. He also had 11 targets too, so it's a good sign for him. Njoku, the tight end for Cleveland, had 4 receptions, 74 yards, and a touchdown, I believe it was. Can't remember exactly. Yeah, I think it was a touchdown from him. Then Phillip Rivers had 344 yards, 1 touchdown. Melvin Gordon, 19 carries, 77 yards. Keenan Allen, 10 receptions, 105 yards, 1 touchdown. And Hunter Henry had 7 receptions for 81 yards. As for probably one of the biggest games of the weekend, Carolina went into New Orleans. New Orleans won that one 31-21. Cam Newton had 183 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, 6 carries for 51 yards. Jonathan Stewart was their leading rusher, 11 carries, 45 yards. And then Devin Funchess was their leading receiver with 4 receptions for 60 yards and a touchdown. Drew Brees had 269 yards and a touchdown. Mark Ingram, 14 carries, 85 yards and a touchdown. Alvin Kamara, another big game from him, most likely going to be the offensive rookie of the year. He had 9 carries, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions, and 66 yards. And Michael Thomas finally scored a touchdown after, what was it, about 7 weeks, I think it was, without one. So yeah, he had 5 receptions, 70 yards, and a touchdown. As for this next game, LA went into Arizona. The Rams beat them 32-16. Jared Goff had 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Todd Gurley had 19 carries, 74 yards, 6 receptions for 84 yards. Big game from him as far as total yardage goes. Cooper Kupp, 5 receptions for 68 yards. Blaine Gabbert, 221 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 picks. Adrian Peterson sat out this one. So Kerwin Williams comes in, has 16 carries for 97 yards. And then Larry Fitzgerald, the ageless wonder, 10 receptions, 98 yards, and a touchdown. As for the last game we're going to be covering from Sunday, New York, the Giants, they headed into Oakland. Oakland won that one 24-17. Geno Smith didn't have a great game by normal quarterback standards, but by Geno Smith standards, he didn't throw an interception, so he had a great game. 212 yards, 1 touchdown. Orleans Darkwa had 14 carries, 32 yards, and a touchdown. Evan Ingram, 7 receptions, 99 yards, and a touchdown. Derek Carr had 287 yards, 1 touchdown. Marshawn Lynch finally starting to get the ball a lot more. And I think that's if Oakland wants to make the playoffs, that's what they need to pretty much build their offense around right now. Give Marshawn Lynch a ball a bunch of times to run with it, and you'll see good things happen. He had 17 carries for 101 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Washington had 1 touchdown also, and then Cordell Patterson had 4 receptions for 97 yards. Really big game from him with Michael Crabtree and Amari Cooper out. So that's going to wrap it up for this first segment. Next up, we're going to talk some college football. I'm going to pretty much go on a little rant about why the rankings are alright, but I'm not cool with one team being in there. I think you could pretty much figure out who that one team is. But other than that, yeah, it's going to wrap it up for right now, and we'll be right back shortly. So stay tuned, and like I said, we'll be right back.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines, they got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright, and welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. In that last segment, we basically just recapped the 10 o'clock and 1 o'clock games from Sunday. For those who live on the East Coast, what is that, 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock games? Man, that's just something I always think about too. Living on the West Coast is the best because you know I get to wake up in the morning at 10 o'clock on Sundays, boom, football's on. Then at 1 o'clock, boom, football's on. Then take a little nap right there, 5 o'clock, boom, football's on. And you know what? Those people on the East Coast, when they're watching those Sunday night games, they don't get done watching those games till around 11 or 12 o'clock at night. We're usually done with those games at around 8:30 or 9. So yeah, it works out pretty well for us. So yeah, it's just one of the good things about living on the West Coast is just pretty much early games, get to be in bed by a good time, and then boom, go on with the next day. But yeah, other than that, like I said, we just recapped the Sunday games from Week 13. later on in the show, we're going to be talking about the Sunday night and Monday night games, talking about Philly and Seattle. We'll talk about Pittsburgh and Cincinnati. We'll talk about Ben McAdoo, too, in that segment. I'll make sure to throw that in there also. But as for this one, we're going to talk some college football, so let's get into it. All right, so obviously there was the championship games this past weekend. On Friday, Stanford and USC played in the Pac-12 championship at Levi Stadium. Those tickets are extremely cheap. I was checking, it was like $25, $28 a piece for one ticket. And usually those games are really empty too, so that's probably why the tickets are so cheap. But one of these years I'm going to have to make it out there for a game, because usually they do put on a pretty good game. But yeah, I'm not getting back into it. Stanford lost to USC 31-28. There was some talk about whether USC should have even been thought of making the top four. I don't think so. They got blown out by Notre Dame. Plus, I mean, USC just really hasn't really, I don't know if it's that whole playing on the Pac-12 bias type of thing, but they really haven't really showed much, I guess you could say. Sam Darnold really hasn't played all too well this season, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not he declares for the draft or stays another year. If I'm him, I'm going out into the draft, because you're going to be a top 5 quarterback for sure. And if you stay another year at USC, then you do have a chance of falling out of there like Jake Locker did. But as for the next game, probably the best game of the weekend was Memphis playing UCF in their title game. It was the AAC title game, American Athletic Conference. UCF won that one 62-55 in double overtime, and UCF's coach, Scott Frost, I think it is, he's heading to Nebraska, so pretty good send-off for him, winning a conference title game. As for Oklahoma, they pretty much did whatever they wanted against TCU. Baker Mayfield had a big game. Oklahoma won 41-17. Let's look at Baker Mayfield's stats right here. He, let's see, I got it right here. He went 15-23, 243 yards through the air, 4 touchdowns, and also took off with the ball 6 times and had 65 yards from that. So yeah, really good game from him. Most likely going to win the Heisman. I believe it's between him, Lamar Jackson from Louisville, and then Bryce Love from Stanford. Lamar Jackson's probably my favorite player in all of college football right now, just because of how he plays. I think he's going to be a better version of Michael Vick once he comes out into the NFL, like a way better version of Michael Vick, just because he throws the ball way better than Vick does too, I believe. But there's no doubt in my mind that Baker Mayfield's going to win the Heisman this season. He's just been playing lights out, shows up in the big game. So, yeah, there's no reason for him not to win it. It'd be pretty incredible for him to win the Heisman and then win the national championship if he could. Those two things right there would just skyrocket his draft stock. Probably go in the first round, maybe even top 10, but we'll see how it all plays out for him. But he's going to have a fun next couple of months for him. But as for Georgia and Auburn in the SEC championship game, nothing like the first game. Georgia was the one who blew out Auburn in this one. Georgia won 28-7. Now Auburn's finished their little regular season 10-3, I believe it was. Georgia's in the playoff. We'll talk more about the playoff rankings in a moment. But yeah, Georgia just came to play, and Auburn really had nothing for them. Fresno State faced off with Boise State, this time in Boise. The week before that, they faced off against each other in Fresno. Fresno won that one, and Boise won the game that mattered. Boise State is now Mountain West football conference champions. They won 17-14. As for the ACC game, Clemson blew out Miami 38-3. Did not think that's how it was going to end up. I thought Clemson would win. I know last week on the podcast I said that I thought Miami was going to win, but I ended up changing my pick on Friday just because I thought, you know what, Miami's got 2 of their top receivers out and their tight end's been out for most of the year. And I don't really like Rozier as a quarterback, so I changed it to Clemson. Sure enough, Clemson won. But yeah, like I said, I just didn't think it was going to be 38-3. I thought Miami's defense was going to hold them in there for a while, keep them in the game, but just simply couldn't do much against Clemson. Clemson right now is going to be the number 1 ranked team in the playoff, and we'll talk about them in a few moments, like I said. But as for the final game, Ohio State went and played Wisconsin in the Big Ten championship game. Ohio State won 27-21. Wisconsin was down early. I think, let me double check it right here. I got it up right here. Here we go. So, maybe I don't have it. But I believe Wisconsin, they were up, I think it was, I got it right here. Ohio State at the end of the first half was up 21-10, so it really wasn't looking too good for Wisconsin because that offense wasn't playing well at all. But the second half comes and they bring it down to 27-21, and they had a couple of chances in the fourth quarter to put up a drive and score a touchdown, but they simply couldn't get anything going on offense when it really mattered. So Ohio State pulled that one out 27-21. There goes Wisconsin's undefeated season, and Ohio State's now 11-2. And now let's get into the college football playoff rankings, the final rankings right here. So it's going to be Clemson at 1. They'll be facing off with number 4 Alabama. I'll talk about why I don't like that right now. But as for Oklahoma, they rank number 2 and Georgia's ranked number 3. That's going to be that's probably going to be an interesting game right there because Oklahoma does have a high-powered offense, but I was talking about it yesterday. The Big 12 defense is they really don't do much, okay? They're not good defenses at all. That's why those games are always 45 to 40, 50, 55 to 50, 60 to something or whatever. They're always high-scoring games, okay? You're not going to be able to do that against an SEC team like Georgia. You're not going to be able to put up 45 points in one game against that team. And you know what? I think Georgia's probably got the advantage right here because Georgia's running game is unstoppable right now. And like I said, those Big 12 teams don't play defense. So, I mean, Georgia's going to put up 40 on Oklahoma, I feel. But if they do that, Oklahoma's not going to be able to put up 40 right with them because, like I said, they haven't faced a defense like this so far this season. So, I like Georgia in that game, but I think Baker Mayfield's still going to play well. But as for number 4, like I said, it's Alabama. They'll be playing Clemson. And I have a problem with Alabama getting in over Ohio State, okay? I understand the argument. Alabama is a one-loss team. Ohio State is a two-loss team, and they lost to Iowa big, okay? I understand that, but you know what? I like to go off of, I like to think, you know what, teams with the biggest wins get in, okay, that's fine, 1 loss, 2 losses, it doesn't matter to me, okay, because you know what, we were going to put an Auburn team with 2 losses in there, and I completely understand that, yeah, that they beat the number 1 ranked Georgia and number 1 ranked Alabama, but you know, if you're going to put a 2-loss team in there, I mean, what are we deciding it off of? Obviously, if you were going to have Auburn in there, then you were going to have them in there because they won their title game, which, Ohio State did, okay? And they beat 2 ranked teams, which Ohio State did, and Penn State and Michigan State, obviously they weren't ranked as high. I think actually Penn State was ranked number 4, so pretty decently from them. But obviously if you're going to have Auburn in there with 2 wins, you're obviously putting them in there because you know what? They had 2 big wins. Ohio State had 2 big wins, okay? Alabama, their biggest win came against LSU, and at the time LSU was only ranked 19th. I think they finished 17th. And Michigan State was ranked at the end of the season. Michigan State was ranked 1 spot ahead of them, and Penn State was ranked number 9. So I'll take Ohio State beating the number 9 and number 16 team ranked team in the nation over Alabama being the number 17th ranked team in the nation and the number 23rd ranked team in the nation, I think it was in Mississippi State. And Alabama actually struggled mightily against Mississippi State. So like I said, I understand the whole Ohio State lost to Iowa big time argument, but I still don't think with Alabama not playing in their championship game that they deserve to be in there because like I said, they played a cakewalk schedule, okay? Yeah, their biggest win could have been against Florida State in the first week of the season, but you know what? Francois got hurt in that game, so Florida State was playing out their starting quarterback for much of that game, so really that game's pretty much nullified right there. It doesn't mean anything. And Alabama just simply, when they did play their best team, when they played the best team of their season, they got blown out. They got destroyed. They lost 26-14 and put up no fight. So I'd rather have an Ohio State team who was at the time, I guess now it doesn't really matter because they're not in the top 4, but they were playing like one of the better teams in the nation. And you know what? If they would have made that top 4, there's a chance that they could have won it all, but I guess we're not going to see that anymore because Alabama got in. I understand Alabama being in. I get it. They're 11-1. That's really the only reason why we have Alabama in, okay? Only reason Alabama's in is because they have 1 loss. But like I said, if you're willing to put a 2-loss Auburn team in there, and again, I understand that they beat Georgia and Alabama, but you're just basing off their season off of 2 big wins, okay? Because they did have 2 losses, and you know, Ohio State did have 2 big wins, even though they had that 1 loss too. And you know what? That other loss in their season came to ranked number 2 ranked Oklahoma team now that the playoff rankings are finalized. So I mean, you got to have Ohio State in. I feel it's just I don't like Alabama being in there, and like I think we've grown to the fact that you know what, we all like to think, you know what, it's Alabama, okay? They've been pretty much dominating college football for the last decade or so. So I think everyone's just gotten used to having them in and thinking of them as a big team, but personally, I think that they're going to lose to Clemson, and I think Ohio State would have had a better shot at Clemson, but I guess we're never going to see that because obviously they didn't make it. But yeah, just like I said, I don't agree with Alabama making it in there over Ohio State. And before these championship games went down this past weekend, I was saying that, you know, I do like how it's only 4 teams and not 8 because, you know, we got all kinds of chaos and all that. But you know what? Now that I see it after, I mean, and 2, before I did have Alabama making it in, okay, in my top 4. So I'm not trying to go back on what I said or anything. I did have Alabama making it in because that's what I thought the committee would do. But now that I see it after this, maybe 8 teams is the way to go. Okay, you have the 5 conference champions from the Pac-12, ACC, SEC, Big 10, and Big 12. You have those 5 teams in there, and then you have 3 at-large teams coming in, probably throwing a team like UCF, and then that's a spot where both Alabama and Ohio State get in. So I think it probably should end up 8 teams now, because I just feel that's where we'll be able to get the teams that even deserve to be in, because it could have been a toss-up between Alabama and Ohio State. Personally, I think Ohio State should be in, as I have stated in this segment, but I mean, when you do 8 teams, when you got them both in, you're going to see what they both can do, but it doesn't matter anymore. Now it's Clemson at number 1, Oklahoma at 2, Georgia at 3, and then Alabama at 4. For my my national title game, I'm going to have Clemson playing Georgia, and I'm not really too sure who I want to pick in that one. I think it'd be Clemson, but I know my mind can change, so we're going to see how it all plays out. But other than that, that's all I got to say about the college football playoff rankings for right now. And next up, we're going to be talking Sunday Night Football, Monday Night Football, and we'll even talk about Ben McAdoo being fired, and we'll see if we can slip in any other NFL news. But we'll be right back, so stay tuned. And like I said, we'll be right back right now.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. In that last segment, we talked about the college football playoff rankings. We had Clemson at number 1, Oklahoma at number 2, Georgia at number 3, and then Alabama at number 4. Personally, like I said earlier, I think Ohio State probably should have made it in over Alabama. I understand the whole 2-loss argument. I understand the whole 1-loss argument, but either way, I still think that Ohio State is the better team. They should be in, but it doesn't really matter because Final Fours are already set. But we'll see how it all plays out once these games come up. I think it's around Christmas time, or not around Christmas time, around New Year's. I think it's going to be on New Year's, actually. So, yeah, we'll see how these games all play out. Once again, though, I have Clemson beating Alabama and Georgia beating Oklahoma. Hopefully I'm right, but hopefully, more importantly, that they're good games. So we'll see how it all plays out. But as for this segment, we're going to go over the primetime games from the NFL this weekend. We had Sunday night, we had Philly versus Seattle, and on Monday night, which was last night, we had Pittsburgh versus Cincinnati. Let's start off with Philly versus Seattle. Philly went into Seattle. Seattle pretty much wiped the floor with Philly. Philly had chances to come back, but they really just simply couldn't capitalize on their chances. Seattle won this game 24-10. Carson Wentz had 348 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Jay Ajayi had 9 carries for 35 yards. So far, Jay Ajayi really hasn't been working out as well as I thought he would in Philly. Okay, I understand that he was traded in midseason, and it's a lot harder for a player to go to a new team midseason, learn a new playbook. But everyone was talking like Ajayi was going to be the guy to take him over the top, pretty much get him to that NFC title game, Super Bowl game, and pretty much take the weight off of Carson Wentz a little bit, make the team a little bit more balanced. But so far, it's really been, and I still think that Philly is going to make the NFC Championship and possibly the Super Bowl. But it's really been LeGarrette Blount who's been playing a lot better than Jay Ajayi so far. I know last game Ajayi was the leading rusher, but the weekend before that, I think it was Blount had 91 yards rushing, so it's pretty much been a switch type of every other week. One player does better. But as for Nelson Aguilar, he had 7 receptions for 141 yards, 1 touchdown. Russell Wilson had 227 yards, 3 touchdowns, 6 carries for 31 yards. Mike Davis, the featured running back in Seattle this week, it always usually changes. He had 16 carries for 64 yards, and Doug Baldwin had 5 receptions for 84 yards. And there's been a lot of talking about how Philly might not be for real, and they might not be as good as their record shows. And I want to pump the brakes on that right now. Okay, Philly right now, they're 10-2 for a reason. 10-3, actually, they're 10-3. Is it 10-3 or 10-2? Yeah, 10-2. They're 10-2 for a reason. All right, you're pretty much in the NFL. Okay, all these teams have talent on there. It's pretty much whatever team has the most talent wins. Obviously, is what pretty much I've gone to see, and that's not really rocket science right there. But I do understand the argument that Philly hasn't really played anyone. Let me look through their schedule right here, okay? Week 1, they played the Redskins. They won that one. The Redskins really aren't that good of a team. Then they played the Chiefs. Chiefs won that one 27-20. At the time, the Chiefs were playing well. I mean, it was only week 2, so you really couldn't base it off of anything right there. But a couple of weeks after that, the Chiefs were still playing well. As of right now, the Chiefs are terrible, and they're pretty much free-falling. But yeah, that was the best team Philly played at that time. They lost, and then they face off with the Panthers. At that time, the Panthers really weren't playing well. Cam Newton wasn't playing well. Okay, that offense really wasn't looking good at all. But nonetheless, Philly won 28-23, and right now Carolina's an 8-4 team, 8-5 team. I can't remember exactly. I think it's 8-4. But their next toughest game was against Seattle, and Seattle beat them 24-10. So if you're talking about those 3 big games, Philly's 1-2. But I don't think that this is the game to really judge them off of. Okay, the game to judge them off of is next week in LA against the Rams. That's going to be the game right there where we decide, you know what, is Philly for real, or are they not as good as their record shows? Okay, because if they lose either way, they're still 10-3. That's still pretty solid. But I mean, if they're not playing like a 10-3 team or a 10-2 team against the best teams in the league, then you know what, maybe they're not going to be able to compete against a team like the Vikings, the Saints, or Rams, or even Seattle, Carolina. Yeah, those are pretty much the teams that are going to be in it right there. I mean, you never know about Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers because he's going to be coming back week 15, I think. And if Green Bay beats the Browns this upcoming week, then Green Bay's got a chance. But nonetheless, going back to Philly, they have to win this game against the Rams. If they don't, then you know what? I'm trying to stay on that Philly bandwagon right now. I'm trying to back them up. I know a bunch of people jumped off after that game against Seattle. But you know what? Carson Wentz is still in the top 3 for MVP right now. Okay, J.J. could always get it going. Then you got Nelson Aguilar, who finally learned how to catch the football this season, and Alshon Jeffrey's been playing well. You know what? That defense has been playing extremely well all season. I know they gave up 24 points against Seattle, but playing in Seattle isn't easy at all. But yeah, I'm not ready to jump off of that Philly bandwagon right now. I think that they're still the best team in the NFC right now. The Vikings, though, I mean, it's pretty close between them and the Vikings. And I'm not saying the Vikings actually have a shot at being the best team in the NFC right now because Philly lost. It's just because Minnesota's pretty much played up to Philly standard. Pretty much been playing about as good as Philly. So, I mean, right now I'd say I'd go Philly until we learn what they do against the Rams after this week. But yeah, right now I'm still going Philly, but Minnesota's right there, and I can even convince myself to go Minnesota right now for the best team in the NFC, but I'm going to stick with Philly. But like I said, if they're not able to beat the Rams, then you know what? Maybe they aren't as good as their record says, and you know what? The Vikings will be the best team in that conference, and you know, maybe a team like New Orleans or even the Rams. Yeah, if the Rams beat Philly, then you know what? I'd even go on to say that, you know what? The Rams are better than the Eagles, but like I said, we got to wait till Sunday and see how it all plays out. But I think Philly's going to be able to pull it out, or at least they need to because they have no choice. But like I said, we'll see how it all plays out. They're going to win the division because that division is brutal. The only way the Cowboys get in is if they win their next 2 games or beat Oakland, and then I think Zeke is back after that. So we'll see how it all goes. I think they got 2 more games. Oh yeah, Dallas has the Giants this week. Then they have the Raiders. And then that's when Zeke comes back against Seattle, and then they got the Eagles week 17. So we'll see how it all plays out, but it's going to be interesting to see. As for Seattle right now, I think they are 8-4 also. And I say also because I was talking about the Panthers earlier. But yeah, right now Seattle's 8-4 in the 5th spot, and I think that they're going to be. It's going to be tough for them because, like I was talking about on the football podcast yesterday. Check that one out if you haven't. But yeah, like I was saying, Seattle's 8-4 right now, but the schedule doesn't get any easier. Okay, this is a brutal. Let's call it, 4-game stretch right here because then you just beat the Eagles, okay? Good job by Seattle right there. They got 1 out, okay? Next week, they got Jacksonville and Jacksonville's actually favored in that game, okay? So you got Jacksonville right there. They're favored. It's going to be a tough one right there because that defense is the best in the league. Then you got the Rams, which is going to be a tough game right there. Right now, the Rams are leading their division. And then you got the Cowboys, which is going to complete that 4-game stretch. And the Cowboys are going to be getting Zeke back that week, so it's going to be even tougher for Seattle. And that game's in Dallas. I mean, their easiest game comes at the end of the year against Arizona, so they really got to manage to go. I think they really need to win 2 out of these next 3 games in order to pretty much, if they win 2 out of these next 3 games, then they'll make the playoffs for sure. So we're going to see how it all plays out for them. But that's all I got to say about those 2 teams. Let's talk a little bit about Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, all right? So Cincinnati yesterday, they jumped out to what was it, like a maybe 14-0 lead, I think it was. Let me double check it right here. I'm going to pull it up. Be patient with me. But, man, that game was a heavy-hitting game right there. Ryan Shazier left the game with what looked like a brutal injury. So far, we haven't gotten any updates from him today. Hopefully, he's doing well. Vontaze Burfict left the game on a stretcher because Juju Smith-Schuster hit him with his helmet in the jaw on a block. I mean, the block, I guess I understand it. It was a bang-bang play, but really the only reason why people are getting mad at Schuster is because he stole it over Burfisit after that. But let's see it right here. Let me go summary. We got it right here. All right, so yeah, the Bengals were up 17-3 at the end of the first half, and it was looking like they were going to pull it out, but Cincinnati pretty much turned into good old Cincinnati, and they ended up blowing the game. They gave up 13 points in the fourth quarter. Let me actually give you the scoring summary of the game from yesterday. So in the first quarter, Randy Bullock kicks a 35-yard field goal, which makes it 3-0. AJ Green later on in the quarter scores an 8-yard touchdown pass from Andy Dalton, makes it 10-0. AJ Green, another touchdown pass from Andy Dalton, makes it 17-0, and then Chris Boswell kicked a 30-yard field goal with time expiring at the end of the first half to make it 17-3. Third quarter, Le'Veon Bell catches a 35-yard touchdown pass from Ben Roethlisberger. That was off of a screen. Then Randy Bullock kicks another field goal, which makes it 20-10. Cincinnati. Chris Boswell comes up in the fourth quarter, kicks a field goal, makes it 20-13 Cincinnati still. And then Antonio Brown catches a touchdown pass, which makes it 20-20. And then Chris Boswell once again kicks the game-winning field goal with no time left on the clock, and Pittsburgh ends up pulling it out. All right, Pittsburgh. Okay, they haven't really played like the best team in the league the last couple of weeks. Okay, they beat a bad Green Bay Packers team with Brett Hundley, and then they beat them 31-28, and then they beat this not so good Cincinnati team 23-20. All right, so you know what, most might think that the Patriots are the best team in the AFC right now, but that's not me. I'm going to think that Pittsburgh is still the best team in the AFC, okay? It doesn't matter to me how you win. It's all about if you win, and they won. All right, and you know what? Right now, there's the number one seed in the AFC right now, so you know what? I'm not going to take that away from them. I could care less if you blow a team out or if you don't blow a team out. Like I said, right now, all I care about is the wins, and that's exactly what they're doing, all right? You can't stop Antonio Brown right now. You can't stop Le'Veon Bell, and you can't stop Ben Roethlisberger. Let me get into their stats, actually, before I even talk about them anymore. Ben Roethlisberger in the game had 290 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Le'Veon Bell, 18 carries, 76 yards, 5 receptions, 106 yards and a touchdown. Antonio Brown, 8 receptions, 101 yards, 1 touchdown. Andy Dalton in that game had 234 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. Joe Mixon left the first quarter with a concussion, but he finished with 7 carries for 34 yards. Giovanni Bernard comes in, plays well, 13 carries for 77 yards. And Adrian Green had 7 receptions for 77 yards and 2 touchdowns. But back to what I was saying about Pittsburgh. Like, I understand people want to say, oh yeah, they're not beating the bad teams how they should. This isn't college football, all right? This is the NFL. We don't care about how well or how bad you beat a team and how you do it, all right? All that matters is that you got the win on that Sunday or Monday or even Thursday. I hate Thursday night football games, but I got to mention them. But yeah, all that matters is that you got the win, and that's exactly what Pittsburgh did. So give them their respect, and like I said, they're the best team in the AFC until otherwise. I understand Tom Brady and that Patriots team's playing extremely well, but you know what? Pittsburgh's been doing it for a lot longer. I understand that these teams have the same records, but as of right now, it's just Pittsburgh is the better team to me. Not by far or anything like that, but you can't knock off Pittsburgh just because they're not winning the way you want them to win. That's not how it works, like I said. So as of right now, I got Pittsburgh being the best team in the AFC, and it's gonna come down. In 2 weeks, I think it is. They'll be playing the New England Patriots, so after that, that's when I might change my mind unless Pittsburgh loses next week. Can't remember exactly who they're playing, but yeah, that Patriots game is going to decide, I guess, who the best team in the AFC is, since they'll be going head-to-head. And I think that game is in Pittsburgh. Let me double-check it right here. Let me pull up their schedule, but let's see. Oh, yeah, they got the Ravens next week. That's going to be a Sunday night game, I believe it is. That's going to be a tough one for Pittsburgh, but that's at home, and I think they'll be fine. And, yeah, that game against the Patriots is going to be at home also. And you know what? I like Pittsburgh against the Patriots right now, especially at home, all right? The Patriots aren't going to be able to handle Antonio Brown. You can't tell me otherwise. Right now, the guy's the best receiver in the league, and they're not going to be able to stop Le'Veon Bell because, believe it or not, he's the best running back in the league. And Ben Roethlisberger can always do what he wants as a quarterback, so it's going to be really fun to see how it all shakes out. I mean, I know the Patriots got Deion Lewis, but he's not as good as Le'Veon Bell, obviously, but he's been playing well. Brandon Cooks is their best receiver, and he's been all right, but obviously not on the level as Antonio Brown. I know Gronk, you can consider him a receiver since he's catching the ball, but I'm just going to consider him a tight end. Obviously, he's the best tight end in the league, I feel. And then obviously Tom Brady's the best quarterback in the NFL, but either way, for some reason, I still like Pittsburgh in this game. Probably might change my mind, might not, but we'll talk more about that game when it gets here. We still got 2 more weeks, but yeah, like I said, Pittsburgh right now, best team in the AFC. As for Cincinnati, I think they're done for the rest of the season. They gave a little glimmer of hope, but now they're 5-7. Let's see, who do they got up next? They got the Bears, the Vikings, the Lions, and the Ravens. So yeah, Cincinnati's down. I'm not even going to get in and talk in depth about their schedule because you know what? You're not going to beat the Vikings, you're not going to beat Detroit, and you're not going to beat the Ravens most likely. So yeah, I'm not going to talk about Cincinnati, but let's talk about Ben McAdoo for this little part of the segment we got left. All right, so he was fired by the Giants on Monday, same with Jerry Reese, and you know what? Ben McAdoo's ego is what got him, okay? It's just benching Eli Manning pretty much was the icing on the cake right there for him getting fired. I guess I thought him doing that was what made me think that he was going to be able to keep his job the year after, because benching your team's all-time best quarterback is a bold move right there. Now I think Ben McAdoo's a little crazy for it now that he got fired, because how are you going to do that when you don't even know if your job is safe? It makes no sense to me, okay? Like I said, it's just his ego is what killed his head coaching job with the Giants. If he doesn't do that, then you know he's probably going to have another chance, because you did have Odell Beckham Jr. hurt, okay? You had a couple of guys on that defense hurt, and you had Brandon Marshall out for the rest of the season also. So, I mean, he really didn't have much to work with because most of his team was injured. So why are you going to bench Eli Manning? The guy was obviously panicking about his job. He's out here benching Eli and trying to make it seem like it was Eli's fault. And it just makes no sense to me. The guys like Jeff Fisher, okay, they let their egos get in the way. Okay, I hope Jeff Fisher never coaches again in the NFL, which I don't think he will. Jeff Fisher's just one guy I feel like is always overrated and overhyped for no reason. Just because he came up short in the Super Bowl is why we let him coach, 17 more years after that, 16 more years after that. So it really makes no sense to me. But right now I'm putting Ben McAdoo in the same boat as Jeff Fisher because they're both guys with big egos. All right, you're not hot stuff. All right, you're not the best coach in the league and you're not close to it. So don't act like it and don't try and pretty much walk around like you own the place, because you don't. Yeah, you're the head coach, but you know what? As a head coach, you got to put the best guys out there. And he was trying to make it seem like it was Eli's fault. But nonetheless, that's why he got fired. And I'm not sure if he's going to get another head coaching job the next few seasons. He's probably going to have to go back as a coordinator somewhere and then work his way up from there. But we'll see how it all plays out. But that's pretty much all I got to say about McAdoo. It's just his ego. That's pretty much all it came down to. If he doesn't bench Eli, he's probably going to be back for next season. But like I said, the guy's ego got in his way. I mean, look at the way he looks now. I mean, he's got the hair all slicked back, wears sunglasses. It looks like he belongs on a Sopranos episode, okay? Last year, he looked nothing like that. His ego got in the way, and I don't know what it was, if it was just coaching in New York got to him. But like I said, either way, it doesn't matter. I don't think he should be a head coach again after this season just because of his ego. You can't really hire a guy like that with a big ego. Otherwise, it's going to crush your team. Back to Jeff Fisher, okay? His ego got in the way. He wasn't starting Jared Goff and all and didn't give him an opportunity to win games last year, okay? You know what? Sean McVay comes in, plays the Goff strengths. Look at that. Rams are leading their division, got the best offense in the league, and Jared Goff is looking like a number one pick that he should have been. All right? But either way, yeah, I just don't like coaches with egos. Don't think they belong as head coaches. But we'll see how it all plays out in the next few seasons, see if he becomes a head coach again or if he gets a coordinator job. But that's all I got to say about that. As for the next segment, we're going to talk some NBA, we're going to talk some Tiger Woods, and we'll see what else comes to mind. But we'll be right back, so stay tuned.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
And welcome back to the GSMC Sports Podcast. This is the last segment of the show. Always not the worst segment to do, obviously, because I love doing this segment, but it just stinks. You know, it's the last segment of the show, and the show is going to be wrapping up soon. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I really love doing this segment. But as for that third segment that we were just doing, we were talking about the Sunday night and Monday night football games, talking about how don't give up on Philly yet, and how Pittsburgh is the best team in the AFC. But as for this segment, we're going to talk some NBA. But before I get into that, look at Tiger Woods. Finished the tournament with a -8, and that's really good for Tiger in his first tournament back. Now, I mean, golf is golf is good when Tiger's out there, and Tiger's good. I mean, I'm going to tune in when Tiger's out there playing well, and I'm sure there's going to be many other casual fans out there tuning in. I wouldn't even consider myself a casual fan, because if Tiger's not out there, then I don't really care. But when Tiger's out there, it's better for the game. But yeah, like I said, he shot a -8, so who knows? Maybe he'll be able to get that major he's been looking for what, the last 5-6 years? Can't remember exactly. But yeah, Tiger's been looking for that major for a while, so let's see if he'll be able to play well and get it. But as for the rest of the segment, we're going to do some NBA scores and stats, so let's get into it. Milwaukee went into Boston. Boston won that one 111-100. Giannis Antetokounmpo had 40 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 14 of 24. Chris Middleton, 19 points, 8 rebounds. And Eric Bledsoe had 18 points, and he shot 6 of 9 in that game, 3 of 6 from the three-point line. As for the Celtics, Kyrie Irving had a big game, 32 points, 4 rebounds, only 1 assist, but that's all right. He shot 13 of 24 for the game. Al Horford had a good game, 20 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. He shot 8 of 10. Jason Tatum had 17 points. He hit 4. He pretty much did all of his scoring in the first quarter, actually. He hit 4 out of 4 from the three-point line in the first quarter, and he finished the game shooting 5 of 6. He had 6 rebounds also. And Jaylen Brown he had a quiet game, 8 points, 7 rebounds, and he shot 4 of 9. As for the next game, we had Orlando heading into Charlotte. Charlotte won that 104-94. Aaron Gordon had 14 points, 6 rebounds. Let's see, Evan Fournier had 18 points, and Elfrid Payton only had 11 points in that one. As for the Hornets, Kemba Walker had 29 points, 7 assists. He shot 7 of 16. Dwight Howard had 12 points, 9 rebounds. Not a good game from him. Only shot 5 of 14. And Michael Kidd-Gilchrist had 11 points and 8 rebounds. As for the next game, we had New York, as in the Knicks, heading into Indiana. Man, I keep getting them those names mixed up. Heading into Indiana, facing off with the Pacers. Pacers won that one 115-97. Michael Beasley had 13 points in that game. Is that Jarrett Jack? I think that is Jarrett Jack. Man, I can't believe he's out there. But Courtney Lee had 8 points. Let's see who else did well. Willie Hernan-Gomez for New York had 14 points, 10 rebounds. He shot 7 of 10. As for the Pacers, Thaddeus Young had is it Thad Young or Thaddeus? Either way, Thad Young had 20 points. He had 6 rebounds, shot 9 of 11. Bogdanovich, 19 points. He shot 7 of 11. Miles Turner had 12 points, 5 rebounds. Not a big game from him. And Victor Oladipo only had 16 points, but only took 10 shots. And he had 5 rebounds and 4 assists, so a pretty decent game from him. As for Phoenix, they headed into Philadelphia, and they pretty much beat up on the Sixers. They won 115-101. Marquise Chris only had 3 points in that one. TJ Warren, 25 points. He shot 12 of 19, had 8 rebounds. Devin Booker had another big game, 46 points. He shot 17 of 32, 8 rebounds. And then Tyler Ulis started in that one. He had 12 points and had 12 assists. As for the Sixers, Ben Simmons had 20 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, shot 9 of 18. Joel Embiid had 22 points, 12 rebounds, shot 7 of 18, and JJ Redick led all Philly scorers with 25 points. He shot 9 of 16, only 3 of 10 from the three-point line. As for the Nets, they headed into Atlanta. Brooklyn won that one 110-90. DeMar Carroll had 13 points. Rondé Hollis-Jefferson had 16, and Sean Dinwiddie had 13 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. As for the Hawks, Dennis Schroeder had 19 points. He had 5 rebounds, 4 assists. He shot 9 of 17. Kent Bazemore only had 13 points, shot 3 of 9. And that was pretty much all that was notable about the Hawks right there. As for this next game, Cleveland went into Chicago, beat up on the Bulls. Cleveland won 113-91. Kevin Love, 24 points, shot 8 of 13, also had 13 rebounds. LeBron James, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, shot 9 of 15. As for Dwayne Wade coming off the bench, he had a big game. 24 points, 6 rebounds. He shot 9 of 13 in that one. As for the Bulls, Lauri Markkanen, the rookie, he had 13 points, 7 rebounds. He shot 5 of 13. And Chris Dunn, he's been playing pretty well these last couple of weeks. He had 15 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, shot 6 of 13. Justin Holiday, only 14 points. He shot 4 of 11. As for Minnesota, they disappointed once again. They lost 92-95 to the Memphis Grizzlies. Let's see. Jimmy Butler had 30 points. He had 5 assists also, shot 11 of 21. Karl Anthony Towns didn't have a good game at all. Only 7 points, 11 rebounds. He only had 6 shots in that game. And Andrew Wiggins didn't have a good game either. Only 12 points, shot 6 of 17, and had 5 rebounds. As for the Grizzlies, Marcus Hall had 21 points, shot 6 of 14. Tyreek Evans had 16 points also. He shot 6 of 14 also. Wow. That's weird to see them both shoot that way. But Tyreek Evans also had 5 rebounds, 9 assists. And Jermichael Green had 14 points, 9 rebounds in that one. So, yeah, Grizzlies pulled that one out 95-92. Minnesota's now 14-11. As for the Golden State Warriors, they headed into New Orleans, faced off with the Pelicans. Golden State won that one 125-115. Draymond Green, 19 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. He shot 6 of 12. Really good game from him. Kevin Durant, 19 points. He shot 8 of 21, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. I believe he was ejected in that game also, along with DeMarcus Cousins. Steph Curry had 31 points, 11 assists. He shot 9 of 19. And Klay Thompson had 22 points on 8 of 13 shooting and 4 of 5 from the three-point line. DeMarcus Cousins had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 7 assists before he got ejected. Drew Holiday had a huge game, 34 points, had 6 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 13 of 21 and 4 of 11 from the three-point line. Rajon Rondo, 10 points, 11 assists, 5 rebounds. He shot 4 of 9. And Etuan Moore had a big game also, 27 points, 6 rebounds. He shot 11 of 18 and 5 of 6 from the three-point line. As for the Dallas Mavericks, but as for Dallas, they beat Denver at home. Dallas won that one 122-105. Kenneth Faried had 13 points, shot 6 of 13, also had 11 rebounds. Let's see, Jamal Murray, he had 22 points, shot 7 of 12, shot 4 of 8 from the three-point line. Gary Harris, decent game from him, 21 points, 7 of 17, and 3 of 8 from the three-point line. As for the Mavericks, Dirk Nowitzki had 9 points. He's playing less and less now. I think he's retiring after the season, so it's going to be sad to see Dirk go. Guy's been around forever, it feels like. But Harrison Barnes, 22 points, shot 9 of 18, had 10 rebounds. Dennis Smith Jr., good game from him. 20 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists, shot 9 of 16, 2 of 4 from the three-point line. And Wesley Matthews had 15 points, shot 5 of 10, and had shot 3 of 8 from the three-point line. As for Detroit, they went into San Antonio. The Spurs beat them 96-93. Tobias Harris had 15 points. He shot 6 of 15. Not a good game from him, really. 5 rebounds. Andre Drummond had 11 points, 15 rebounds, only took 8 shots, made 4 of them. Reggie Jackson had 27 points. He shot 12 of 21, had 4 rebounds. Avery Bradley, just a bad game from him. Only 3 points, 4 assists, 1 rebound. He shot 1 of 9 for the entire game, and he played 33 minutes. As for Stanley Johnson coming off the bench, he had 14 points, 10 rebounds. He shot 4 of 10 from the game. He's not really ever been really that good of a shooter, but did well yesterday off the bench, I guess you could say. As for LaMarcus Aldridge and the Spurs, LaMarcus Aldridge had 17 points, 10 rebounds. He shot 5 of 17. Not a good game from him. Rudy Gay started this game. He had 12 points, 10 rebounds. He shot 5 of 12. Paul Gasol, 15 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and he shot 6 of 13. As for Tony Parker, he had 7 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds in 20 minutes, and Danny Green had 11 points, 6 rebounds, and he shot 4 of 9. That's actually it for the scores of yesterday. Let's check in what we got going on tonight. Let's see if we got any big games going on tonight. Let me check the NBA right here. Let me actually update on the Champions League games right now. Okay, so Chelsea drew with Atletico Madrid 1-1. Basel beat Benfica 2-0. Manchester United beat Moscow 2-1. Roma beat FK Karabag 1-0. Barcelona beat Sporting 2-0. Anderlecht beat Celtic 1-0. And then Bayern Munich got revenge from PSG. Bayern Munich won 3-1. But as for these NBA games, I think we only got 3 games going on tonight. We got Phoenix heading into Toronto facing off with the Raptors. We got the Jazz heading into Oklahoma City facing off with the Thunder. And then we got the Wizards heading into Portland facing off with the Trailblazers. Actually, did I mention the Wizards score from yesterday against the Jazz? I don't believe I did. Let me go back and do that. But, let me go back and check that out right there. Yeah, we had the Wizards. They faced off with the Jazz. Wizards played terrible in this game. Man, they need John Wall. Utah won that one 116-69. Let me see right here the box score we got right here. Let's see. Marcus Morris had 11 points. Otto Porter had 14 points. He shot 6 of 13. And Bradley Beal only had 11 points. He shot 4 of 15. Without John Wall, that team is a lost cause. As for Utah, Donovan Mitchell, 21 points. He shot 8 of 13. Still having a great rookie season, okay? Joe Ingles, 11 points. He shot 4 of 6. Derek Favors, only 9 points on 7 shots, 8 rebounds. Let's see. Alec Burks had 27 points. He shot 9 of 13, 3 of 5 from the three-point line. He had 5 rebounds and 3 assists also. He's been doing really well off of the bench. Let me double-check, make sure I didn't miss any other NBA games. Don't want to leave anyone out, you know. But, right now, Utah is just – or not Utah. Washington is just lost without John Wall, it looks like. They really need to figure it out. No, that was the last game I needed to cover, but let's see right here. What was I talking about right now? Oh, yeah, the game's going on tonight. Let me check those out right now. Like I said, we got Suns facing off with the Raptors, Jazz facing off with the Thunder, and the Wizards facing off with the Trailblazers. Let me make my picks for those games right there, all right? So as for the Suns and Raptors, I'm going to go with the Raptors. Obviously, they're favored by 14 points in this one. I don't think they'll win by that much, but they're going to win nonetheless. Expect a good game from Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan, and Devin Booker should have a good game also. He always plays well against the good teams in the league. As for the Jazz and Thunder, right now the Jazz are 13-11, Thunder 10-12. Thunder are going to be 10-13 after tonight. I think the Jazz are going to beat them. Jazz play better defense, and the Thunder already can't score as it is, so it doesn't matter about them. As for the Wizards, they're facing off with the Trailblazers. I got the Trailblazers in this one easily. Wizards really haven't been playing well at all without John Wall, and when you got Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum on your team, you're always going to have a chance to win. But yeah, I got the Raptors against the Suns, the Jazz against the Thunder, and the Trailblazers against the Wizards. But other than that, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for today's show. This was a fun one throughout. We recapped the Week 13 games in the first segment, talked about the college football playoff rankings, gave my thoughts on it in the second. Right before this segment, we talked about the Sunday night and Monday night football games, talked a little bit about Ben McAdoo being fired, and if you just fell asleep during this segment or need a quick reminder, we talked about Tiger Woods a little bit, and we did the NBA games from Monday night. So that's going to wrap it up for today's show. Like I said, this was a fun one. Thanks for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Tapia, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, so stay tuned, and we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.